Today we're diving into one of the most heartbreaking cases I've ever covered of 17-month-old Levi Beaty. This is a story that will shake you to your core. But before we begin, I need to warn you, this case involves detailed descriptions of child mistreatment. I'm going to try, as best as I can, to stay within YouTube's guidelines. So let's honor Levi's memory by telling this story with the respect and attention it deserves. Our story begins in Morgan County, Tennessee in 2013. Amanda Beaty was a 27-year-old mother of 3 children. She was recently separated from her husband, Wesley Beaty, after 9 years of marriage. Amanda had custody of all 3 children, a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and 17-month-old Levi. He was the youngest and most vulnerable of the 3. Amanda's life was in upheaval. She was a single mother struggling with addiction issues, specifically opiates, and she was about to make a decision that would seal her youngest child's fate. In August 2013, just as her marriage was crumbling, Amanda connected with an old acquaintance on Facebook. This man was Roger Prince. Roger was also going through a divorce. He had been married to Samantha Prince for 13 years. 9 years and 13 years between them, decent innings to be fair. But there were already red flags surrounding Roger's character. See, his ex-wife's mother would later testify Roger had a temper, he was controlling, and had essentially forced Samantha to sign divorce papers, giving him full custody of their daughter. This should have been Amanda's first warning, but she was vulnerable, alone, and looking for someone to lean on. Their relationship moved with alarming speed. Within just 3 weeks of their contact on Facebook, Amanda and her 3 children moved into Roger's home. Think about that. 3 weeks. I've slept longer than 3 weeks. I mean, this was a woman with 3 small children moved in with a man she barely knew, bringing her children into an environment where they would be completely dependent on his goodwill, practically a stranger. As for Roger, his 13-year-old daughter was suddenly thrust into the role of caretaker for Amanda's children. This teenage girl, still processing her parents' divorce and her father's new relationship, was expected to help care for 3 young children, including an infant. And the household dynamic was strained, with too many people, too much responsibility placed on a child, and 2 adults who barely knew each other trying to blend their families. But the most concerning aspect of this new living arrangement was Amanda's drug use. Now, Amanda is one of the villains in this story, so I'm going to tell you now, to me, she looks like Danny DeVito. If she is Danny DeVito, who do you think Roger is? Comment, let me know. Roger would later testify that when Amanda was using drugs, she would scream, yell, holler at the children. Her addiction was affecting her ability to be a parent, and she was becoming increasingly dependent on Roger, not just emotionally and financially, but also for the day-to-day care of her children, particularly Levi. This dependency would prove to be fatal. See, when you're struggling with addiction, your judgment becomes impaired, your priorities shift. Amanda's priority became maintaining her relationship with Roger, even when that relationship began to threaten her children's safety. Now, the first sign something was wrong was October 28, 2013, 2 months after Amanda and the children moved in. Amanda took Levi to see Tarrant McCarley. Tarrant was a family nurse practitioner at Morgan County Medical Center. Amanda went because the baby had developed a rash, and Amanda suspected it might be flea bites from her parents' dog. But what happened next should have been a wake-up call that changed everything. See, while the nurse was weighing Levi, she noticed a lump on his left clavicle area and pointed it out. The nurse practitioner immediately recognized this lump looked consistent with an injury and ordered an x-ray. She described Levi as tearful and noted that he appeared to be in pain. And this is where Amanda's story starts to fall apart. When the nurse informed Amanda about the lump and the need for an x-ray, Amanda appeared completely unaware of the injury. This is a 17-month-old child with a broken collarbone, and his mother had no idea. See, the x-ray revealed a clear clavicle fracture, a serious injury that would have been extremely painful for a toddler. And when confronted with this evidence, Amanda, or Danny DeVito, appeared surprised and claimed she didn't know how the fracture could have happened. But then something interesting occurred. So the nurse left the room to prepare paperwork. When she returned, Amanda suddenly remembered what happened. She claimed she spoke with the kids on her phone and learned that Levi's 6-year-old sister saw the boy land on the concrete floor, and after picking him up from his playpen by his arms. Amanda also mentioned Levi had experienced vomiting after this alleged fall. Now, Tarrant, an experienced medical professional, immediately recognized several red flags. First, the injury was not consistent with an accident because it required the impact of a strong force. This was a broken clavicle. In her professional opinion, for an injury of this type to be accidental would definitely be rare. Second, she found it deeply concerning Amanda was initially unaware and then suddenly developed a story. But the story got more suspicious. The next day, when Levi returned for follow-up after his hospital treatment, Amanda told Macaulay that the sister was now denying that she dropped Levi. A 6-year-old child's story changed overnight. This increased Macaulay's concern for Levi's welfare. Macaulay explained to Amanda, anytime a child presents with an injury and there's not a clear explanation, it's certainly concerning that something happened to that child that could be a non-accidental injury. She told Amanda that because the cause of the injury was unknown, she was concerned for Levi's safety and would need to notify the Department of Children's Services. This was the first official report to the DCS, and it should have been the beginning of intensive monitoring and protection for Levi. Unfortunately, as we'll see, the system's response was inadequate, and Amanda's response was to become better at hiding the abuse rather than stopping it. Now, 2 months later, December the 30th, 2013, Amanda brought Levi back to Macaulay for what was supposed to be a routine sick visit. Macaulay immediately noticed more alarms. There was extensive bruising on Levi's forehead, on his jawline, on his eyes, and the tops of both ears. When asked about these injuries, Amanda had a ready explanation. She claimed Levi fell into the coffee table, and that the bruising on his ears was because he always pinched himself. She also mentioned that Levi bruised easily, as if this explained away the concerning pattern of injuries. But Macaulay's trained eye caught what Amanda hoped she wouldn't notice. There were marks on Levi's face that were in different stages of healing, which was completely inconsistent with Amanda's explanation, that all the marks occurred from one fall on a coffee table. Now, if a child was to fall once, all the resulting bruises should be at the same stage of healing. The fact that they weren't told Macaulay that these injuries had occurred at different times. Most concerning of all was the marks on Levi's ears. In fact, there were also smolder, burn marks on the ears, and that Macaulay noted it appeared both ears had been pinched. She stated she did not believe a baby of Levi's age could exert that type of force required to cause bruising to that area of his ears. I think someone deliberately pinched or got a lighter, maybe got a cigarette and burnt his ears hard enough to leave all the marks. What the fuck? By January 14, 2014, the situation had escalated dramatically. During what was supposed to be another routine sick visit, Macaulay observed injuries that would haunt anyone who saw them. In addition to ongoing bruising concerns, Levi had marks on his right upper arm. He had small hemorrhages under the skin that indicate trauma. But the most disturbing discovery was what was found under Levi's fingernails and toenails. It seemed they were peeled off. He had pools of blood underneath his fingernails and under the nails of both big toes. Macaulay described the blood pooling as appearing as though someone had peeled off Levi's fingers and toes. Bro, even Danny DeVito isn't that sinister. Think about that for a moment. Someone had deliberately injured this baby's fingers with enough force to cause blood to pool under the nails. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate, sadistic mistreatment of an infant who couldn't defend himself or even articulate what was happening to him. When Macaulay asked Amanda about these injuries, Amanda's response was to suggest Levi must have some type of bleeding abnormality. She was trying to medicalize the mistreatment to find some explanation that did not involve acknowledging someone was torturing her baby. Macaulay ordered blood work to check for bleeding disorders, but everything came back normal. She referred Levi to the hematology department because she was trying to build documentable evidence to report to the DCS. She was concerned that if she reported her suspicions again, Amanda might stop bringing Levi, which would eliminate her ability to monitor his well-being. This reveals something crucial about Macaulay's mindset. She believed her initial report to DCS in October had been dismissed. She was worried that if she reported all these marks on the child, they would dismiss again. So instead of immediately reporting what was going on, she felt she needed to gather more evidence. This decision, while understandable, may cost Levi precious time. Every day that passed was another day that this baby remained in danger. On January the 23rd, 2014, Levi and his brother were seen by Dr. Spiller, a hematologist-oncologist. Wait, is that a thing? Dr. Spiller's evaluation confirmed what Macaulay suspected. There was no bleeding disorder that would explain Levi's injuries. Instead, the doctor indicated concern for inflicted trauma and requested that Dr. Perales evaluate Levi. See, Dr. Perales was a pediatric physician who specialized in child cases. When she examined Levi, what she found was devastating. The evaluation included a skeletal survey. This revealed not just the heel fracture to Levi's left clavicle, but also healing fractures in the wrists and the base of the fingers. Let me break this down to you. This 17-month-old baby had 3 separate bone fractures at different stages of healing. In fact, that's 3 in the hand. The baby had 38 fractures in total. The wrist fracture was estimated to be a few weeks old, and the fingers, a break to his thumb bone, was described as an unusual fracture that the radiologist couldn't even explain because it was so uncommon in children to have this. Perales testified that it was extremely unusual for someone at Levi's age to sustain a fracture to the thumb bone. The fracture to his right arm was in the middle of the bone and would have required a pretty sharp blow to inflict. This type of break was not something an infant could have done to himself, and it would have been extremely painful, causing a child to favor that limb. When Perales spoke with Amanda and Roger about these findings, they were supposedly unaware of the fractures, provided no explanation for how the injuries had occurred. But here's what's chilling. Perales noted that there was no indication of a bleeding disorder that might have caused Levi to be prone to bruising. The absence of any medical explanation and the multiple bone injuries caused the physicians overwhelming concern for non-accidental trauma. Both Spiller and Perales suspected child mistreatment. Perales documented child mistreatment in the medical records as her primary concern and notified DCS. Finally, it seemed like the system was going to step in and protect the baby. A DCS investigator, John Norris, became involved with Levi's family. On January 31, 2014, he arranged to meet with the family and executed what's called an Immediate Protection Agreement, or IPA. This document contained guidelines that Amanda agreed to follow to ensure the safety of her children. The IPA reflected that physical mistreatment was suspected due to Levi's multiple unexplained injuries. Norris worked with Amanda on creating this agreement, and he confirmed that she was aware that physical abuse was suspected. Amanda had no explanation for the injuries, but claimed that Levi was being evaluated for a possible bleeding disorder, a claim that had already been medically disproven. Now, the IPA included all 3 of Amanda's children, requiring them to stay with Paulette Pollard, a family friend. Amanda agreed that her contact with Levi would be supervised, and crucially, Roger and his daughter would have no contact with Levi at all. This should have been the moment when Levi was finally safe. He was removed from the home where he was being mistreated, placed with a neutral caregiver, and the people suspected of harming him were prohibited from having contact. But as we'll see, Amanda's priorities were not with protecting her son. In mid-2014, Amanda called Norris to notify him she was moving out of Roger's home. She said she was going into her parents' home in Tennessee with her children. This seemed like a positive development. Amanda was removing herself and her children from Roger's influence and moving in with family members who provide support and supervision. But what Norris didn't know was that this separation was temporary and had nothing to do with protecting the children. Roger asked Amanda to get out of the house because of her drug use. He didn't want drugs around his daughter. And Amanda's move to her parents' house was not recognition that Roger posed a danger to her daughter, it was simply the result of Roger's unwillingness to tolerate her addiction. Even more concerning, during the time that Levi was supposed to be staying with Pollard under the protection of the IPA, Roger was still having contact with the children. The court orders meant nothing to Amanda if they interfered with her relationship with Roger. At the end of February, Amanda called Norris to notify him that she had taken Levi to the emergency department in Tennessee due to an illness. Norris suggested that she take Levi to Children's Hospital for more evaluation, and she agreed. This decision would reveal just how much worse the situation had become. On March 2nd, 2014, Levi was admitted to Children's Hospital, and what the medical team found was horrifying. Dr. Mary Palmer, another child expert, was consulted because the attending physicians found concerning physical findings that went far beyond a simple illness. Levi presented with a fever that was determined to be related to a blood system infection. The CT scan revealed something more sinister. There was inflammation around his spine that may have resulted in the blood system infection. The scan showed that Levi's lung tissue was affected, and there was fluid around his heart. Most alarmingly, the inflammation around his spine suggested trauma to that area. A new skeletal survey revealed another fracture, this time to Levi's tibia. Dr. Palmer and the radiologist determined this fracture had occurred approximately 2 or 3 weeks before March 10. This meant that while Levi was supposed to be under the protection of the DCS, where he was supposed to be safe from his abusers, someone had broken his leg. Palmer stated that a fracture of this type would initially limit a child's movement due to pain. This baby had been walking around with a broken leg, and Amanda claimed she didn't notice anything different. And when confronted with this new fracture, Amanda offered no explanation. The photographs that Dr. Palmer took of Levi's injuries tell a story of ongoing, systematic mistreatment. The images showed marks to his nails and abrasions on his fingers. Some of the marks looked fresher to the base of the nail bed, while others had grown out, indicating there was ongoing injuries. Someone was repeatedly hurting this baby's fingers. The picture also showed continued marks to Levi's ears. Palmer noted that if earlier medical providers had observed ear marks, seeing it again would be more concerning, because ear marks typically resolved within 7 days. Any marks outside that would indicate ongoing abuse. Palmer's examination revealed abrasions to Levi's chin and nose, a scratch to the jawline, and marks to his right cheekbone and lip. None of the diagnostic efforts were able to uncover any medical reason that would explain the bruising or bone fractures other than non-accidental trauma. After completing the evaluation, Dr. Palmer told Amanda she believed Levi was being mistreated. She wanted DCS to understand the significance of what was going on and the lack of protection that was being offered. And based on Amanda's questions during this conversation, Palmer believed Amanda understood the injuries were inflicted. Amanda was asking about timeframes and who would have access to Levi during these periods, questions that suggested she knew someone was hurting her son. Who might it be? Let's see. On March 12, 2014, when Levi was released from hospital, DCS finally took action. They removed Levi from Amanda's custody entirely, placing him with Amanda's parents, Stacy and Melvin Silver. A new IPA was created that limited contact between Levi and Roger. Even Paulette Pollard, who had been eliminated as a caregiver because she had been in a supervisory role when some further injuries occurred. So a juvenile court hearing was held, and both Amanda and Roger were present. At the end of the hearing, the court issued an order preventing Roger and Paulette Pollard from having any contact with all of Amanda's children. Norris spoke with both Amanda and Roger about this order, and he believed they understood Roger was to have no contact. This was Levi's last best chance at safety. He was now living with his grandparents away from Roger and Amanda. The court had issued a clear order prohibiting contact, and for the first time since October 2013, Levi was truly protected from all of those mistreating him. And for a brief period, from March 2014 until May 2014, He suffered no injuries, no mysterious marks, no bones were broken, no blood pooled. When Levi was away from Roger and Amanda, the mistreatment completely stopped. Amanda's priorities remained unchanged. She continued her relationship with Roger throughout this period, living with him while her children stayed with her parents. Her focus was not on understanding why her son was safer away from her, but on getting him back so she could resume her relationship with Roger without interference. Now, on May 7, 2014, another hearing was held. This was at the juvenile court, and it made a decision that would seal Levi's fate. They allowed Amanda's children to return to her on a conditional basis. This was a trial home placement. However, the court order continued to prohibit contact between Levi and Roger. Amanda moved into the Eastwood apartments with her 3 children. She was supposed to be starting fresh, focusing on her children's safety and well-being. The court had given her another chance to be a mother her children needed, but Amanda had no intention of following this court order. See, it was revealed that Roger's contact with Levi resumed immediately, despite the prohibition. Amanda later admitted that she didn't follow the court order because she did not want to believe Roger would hurt Levi, and she did not want to be alone. Think about what that means. Amanda had been told by multiple medical people her son was being mistreated. She had seen the x-rays, she'd seen the broken bones, she'd seen the blood under his fingernails. She had been present when doctors explained there was no medical condition that could account for these injuries. She knew that when Levi was away from Roger, Levi was safer, and yet she chose Roger over her son's safety because she did not want to be alone. In other words, she wanted to take her drugs while her children were being cared for. During the final month of Levi's life, Amanda continued to violate the court order by allowing Roger to have contact with her children. She later admitted that she made the wrong choice as a parent, but at the time, her addiction and her dependence on Roger overrode her instincts. Roger would later testify that he loved the kids and he wasn't harming them, but the medical evidence told a different story. Every time Levi was in Roger's presence, he was injured again. Every time he was removed from Roger's presence, the injury stopped. And Amanda's cousin, Darlene Hardy, she also testified about a conversation she had with Amanda. When Hardy expressed concerns about the no contact order being violated, Amanda told her she had no other way to get around without Roger driving her. Amanda was prioritizing her convenience and her relationship over her son's protection. The text messages between Amanda and Roger during this period revealed the toxic dynamic of their relationship. The night before Levi's death, Amanda sent Roger 60 text messages to come over. She sent messages claiming she had been drinking, that she couldn't find Levi and Levi's nose wouldn't stop bleeding. She later admitted that these messages were lies designed to manipulate Roger to come over. One particularly disturbing text message, which Amanda denied but did come from her phone, said, "I don't care what you do, I'm over these fucking kids. I wish I didn't have them. They can't even listen." This message revealed Amanda's true feelings about her children. They were obstacles to her relationship with Roger. Bro, Roger isn't even that special. Now on June 1st, 2014, Roger came to Amanda's apartment. Amanda left to run errands, leaving Roger to babysit her 3 children in direct violation of the court order. According to the surveillance footage that investigators later obtained, Roger's car entered the apartment complex at 5:21. Amanda was captured on surveillance footage at the local food market at 6:52. She was also at the Dollar General at 7:13 p.m. The 911 call reporting Levi's collapse wasn't made until 7:19. This timeline is crucial because it establishes Roger was alone with the children for nearly 2 hours before Amanda returned. Levi collapsed just minutes after she got back. During those 2 hours, something happened to end his life. When emergency responders arrived, they found Roger and a neighbor performing CPR on Levi. The baby's lips were bluish, indicating that he hadn't been breathing for several minutes. Deputy Trevor Shadden noted Levi had a grey tint due to a lack of oxygen, suggesting that it had been a while since the baby had been breathing. Roger initially claimed Levi had choked on a cookie. Roger told multiple people he had removed cookie residue from Levi's airway, but when first responders checked Levi's mouth and the surrounding area, they found no evidence of a cookie. It seems Amanda ate all the cookies you muppet. Now, Dustin Bonham, who had EMT training, noted Levi's belly was expanding during CPR, which indicated there was no blockage in his airway. The choking story was a lie. On June 4th, 2014, Dr. Dorinka, the chief medical examiner for Knox and Anderson counties, performed the autopsy. What she found was so horrific that it defied belief. Dorinka found no cookie crumbs or pieces obstructing Levi's airway. There was no indication that he had died from choking or a lack of oxygen. Instead, the findings revealed that the cause of death was internal loss of blood due to multiple traumas, specifically the transection of the aorta. Let me explain what this means. Levi's aorta, the major blood vessel that carries blood from the heart to the rest of the body, had been completely severed. Dr. Dorinka described a portion of the aorta as completely disconnected. She found approximately 2/3 of Levi's total blood volume in his chest cavity, where it had poured out of his severed aorta. But the aortic transection wasn't the only devastating injury. Levi's spine was broken at the junction of the 12th thoracic vertebra and the first lumbar vertebra. Dorinka confirmed that it appeared Levi had suffered some sort of force that caused his spine to snap cleanly in half and cause his aorta to rupture. Wait, snapped his spine in half? What? The examiner was clear about the implications of these injuries. Levi would have been unable to walk, crawl, or climb on a couch after sustaining the spine fracture. See, in a couple of heartbeats, he would have pumped out all of his blood found in the chest cavity, and these injuries were guaranteed to be fatal and not treatable due to the severity. Dorinka stated she had only seen this type of injury in major vehicle accidents. The force required to cause these injuries were enormous, far beyond what could result from a fall or any kind of accident a toddler might have. She said that a twisting or flexing motion to a degree greater than the body could handle would cause these types of injuries. And when asked directly, Dorinka stated that it would be impossible for Levi's injuries to result from a fall and that there was no possible accident. The autopsy also revealed much more than just fatal injury. Dorinka documented numerous marks and abrasions on Levi's body that told the story of his final moments and the ongoing abuse he had endured. She noted patterned contusions or bruising along his jawline that were consistent with someone gripping him around the face. She found signs of pinpoint hemorrhages on his face that occur when veins in the neck are compressed. This prevented blood from draining from his head and causing small capillaries to burst. The internal examination revealed swelling under Levi's scalp. Dorinka stated that it was unlikely they occurred as a result of regular child play. These injuries, combined with the trauma to Levi's neck, raised serious concerns about non-accidental trauma. Levi's upper lip had a deep laceration where his teeth had been forced through the lip, causing a tear. Dorinka explained that these injuries would be caused by something forcefully, bringing the upper and lower jaw together. One of the incisors had penetrated almost the full thickness of his lips. Significantly, there was no trauma to the tip of Levi's chin, which would be expected if he fell. The injuries were concentrated along his jawline, consistent with someone gripping his face. You also had the presence of neutrophils around a shoulder injury, indicating that this trauma had occurred the day before. However, there were no neutrophils around the injuries to his lips or aorta, indicating these were fresh. They occurred at the time of his death. So, the investigation into Levi's death revealed a web of lies and deception that Amanda and Roger had constructed. Initially, both claimed Roger had arrived at the apartment just as Amanda was calling for help, suggesting he was not present when Levi collapsed. But surveillance footage from the elementary school across the street told a different story. The video showed Roger's car entering the apartment at 5:21, nearly 2 hours before 911 was called. Additional surveillance footage showed Amanda was not home until 7:15, minutes before the call. When confronted with this evidence, Roger initially lied, claiming he arrived at 5:45, but then he told the truth. He had been alone with the children for nearly 2 hours. And also, Amanda's stories changed repeatedly throughout the investigation. Initially, she claimed she had been home all day with the children and that Levi had collapsed while she was getting him strawberries. Then she claimed that a neighbor named Amber Purdue had been babysitting. Later, she admitted, okay, it was Roger that was home, but claimed they had all agreed to lie about it to protect her from losing custody of her children. In her final written statement given in September 2014, Amanda provided elaborate details about Levi laughing and giggling. When she returned home, describing how he was sitting on Roger's chest and pointing at her, she later admitted that none of these details were true. She had made them up to create a more comfortable memory and to protect Roger. Now, the trial of Amanda Beaty and Roger Prince began several years after Levi's death. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of systematic child mistreatment, leading to the fatal assault. Medical experts testified about the pattern of injuries Levi had sustained. Over the months leading up to his death, the evidence showed multiple bone fractures at different stages of healing, ongoing bruising, and trauma to his fingers and toes. There were injuries that were completely inconsistent with accidents. DCS workers testified about the repeated attempts to protect Levi and the court orders that Amanda and Roger had violated. The testimony revealed that every time Levi was removed from their care, the mistreatment stopped, and every time he was returned to their care, new injuries appeared. Amanda then took the stand in her own defense, finally admitting she believed Roger had killed Levi. She testified she came to this conclusion after she was arrested. She admitted that she had failed to protect her son and made the wrong choice as a parent by prioritizing her relationship with Roger over the children. Roger also testified maintaining his innocence and claiming that Levi's collapse was sudden. He continued to insist that he had never harmed the child. Finally, Roger's daughter also testified about the events. She provided testimony that was inconsistent with the physical evidence and the timeline established by surveillance footage. Her testimony revealed pressure had been placed on her to participate in the cover-up of Levi's abuse and death. So, after hearing all the evidence, the jury convicted both Amanda Beaty and Roger Prince of felony murder in the perpetration of aggravated child abuse and felony murder in the perpetration of aggravated child neglect. Amanda was also convicted of aggravated child endangerment. The trial court imposed an effective life sentence with the possibility of parole for Roger Prince and an effective life sentence with the possibility of parole plus 15 years for Danny DeVito. These convictions represent justice for Levi, but they cannot undo the systematic failure. Multiple opportunities existed to save the child's life, and at each crucial moment, the adults who were supposed to protect him failed. Now, in the trial, you did have present Levi Beaty, the biological father, and of course, Levi was one of the three kids Amanda and Wesley shared. Wesley said he was banned from his son's funeral, and the conviction is the closest he'll get to closure. He said, "I won't ever get to see him graduate, see his future, nothing. This has all been taken away." He locked eyes with Amanda before her sentencing. Wesley said she looked regretful. Jean Quinn, Levi's great-grandmother, was in the courtroom for the entire trial. She says the courage of Wesley's older daughter was palpable as she took the stand, helping the prosecution put the mother behind bars. She said prosecutors described the death as torturous. Wesley says he's doing his best to close this chapter, knowing Levi resides with God. However, he wishes he had more time with his baby. So, to conclude, Levi's death was entirely preventable. From October 2013, when his first injury was documented, till June 2014, when he died, there were numerous opportunities to save his life. The medical professionals who treated Levi did their jobs. They recognized the signs of abuse, documented the injuries, and reported their concerns to the appropriate authorities. Tarrant McCarley, Dr. Perales, and Dr. Palmer all identified Levi was being mistreated. The DCS system, while imperfect, also attempted to intervene. Immediate protection agreements were put in place. Levi was removed from dangerous situations, and court orders were obtained to prevent contact. The failure was in enforcement and in Amanda's complete disregard for her son. Court orders are only effective if they are followed and enforced. Amanda's decision to repeatedly violate these orders, combined with inadequate monitoring and enforcement, created the conditions that led to Levi's death. But perhaps the most important lesson from this case is about the nature of child abuse and the mindset of abusers and enablers. Amanda knew her son was being mistreated. She saw the medical evidence, she heard the expert opinions, she witnessed the pattern. When Levi was away, he was safe. When he was with Roger, he was injured. And yet, she chose Roger over Levi's safety because she did not want to be alone. This decision reveals the complex psychology of domestic violence and child abuse situations, where victims and enablers often prioritize maintaining relationships over protecting children. Danny DeVito and Roger Rabbit. Who would have thought it, huh? Comment, tell me what you think.